Hey, YouTube theologians, Merry Christmas. Pastor Wolfmueller here. You're not going to believe this. This is now my third take of this video. The first take, I started getting into all this nerdy calendar stuff about Christmas and started to confuse myself. Maybe I'll get to that at the end of it, because what I want to talk about is these two pictures of Christmas, and I want to run them by you. And I think they work, but they don't work as well as I'd like them to work. So we're workshopping this together, and I'd love your feedback on the picture. Now, here, the idea is this. Trying to answer this question is that when the Lord presents the solution, He indicates to us the problem. And when the solution comes to us as so serious, then it also shows us the problem to be so serious. And so, when the solution shows up at Christmas as the birth of God in the flesh, the incarnation showing up, which we celebrate today, on Christmas season, the 2026th anniversary of our Lord's birth, His 2026th birthday. Wow. It indicates that there's something going on that needs that drastic of a solution. In other words, a lot of Christians think that their problem doesn't require God in a body to fix. And if you think that's the case, then you have the wrong problem. So here's my two illustrations. The first is, if you can imagine that you are sitting in your house and you see an ant walking across the floor, and you go to your neighbor and you say, who happens to be a contractor, hey neighbor, I need you to come over and kill this ant. Now, I don't know why you don't do it yourself. I mean, I think, man up, but if you kill it yourself, it doesn't help the illustration. So you go over to your neighbor and you think, he's going to take his flip-flop, get up from the couch, take his flip-flop and kill the ant for you, and then problem solved. Well, your neighbor comes over and he sees it, and first of all, it's not an ant, it's a termite. And second of all, that your whole house is infected with termites. And third, that the whole structure is about to collapse. And so he gets you and your family and he says, get out of the house right now. And he puts caution tape around it and says, don't go, it's not safe to be in there. And the next day he comes and they bulldoze the house over, and then they get the construction, they rebuild the house with the construction team and everything else like that. Now, in other words, you thought you had a little problem that was requiring a flip-flop to fix. And in fact, you needed a backhoe and a whole construction crew and everything else. Or, try this. Let's say that one day you have an itch in the back of your shoulder, and so you go over to your neighbor, who's a doctor this time, and you say, hey, could you scratch this itch? Man, my shoulder, it's itchy. Scratch it. You say, making my shoulder itch just talking about it now. Anyhow, and he says, yeah, let's take a look. And he looks and he says, oh, okay, now don't panic, but we got to get you straight to the ER, and we're going to have surgery this afternoon. And we'll get you on a chemo treatment, but I think we caught it in time. It's good news. You're gonna live. Like, wait, I just want you to scratch my shoulder. Now you're gonna amputate my arm? What's going on? In other words, the problem was a lot more serious than you thought. Now, the solution indicates that the problem is a lot more serious. And that's what should occur to us when we see the angels pointing the shepherds to Bethlehem, saying, for unto us a Savior is born, who is Christ the Lord, and you'll find the baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. And this is now the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, who's lying in a manger. That indicates that our problem is a lot worse than we thought. Now, it's not just that. It's not just God in the flesh, because it takes even more. Because it turns out that the reason why God is in the flesh is so that he can be on the cross. You cannot crucify the immortal, invisible, God only wise. He has to have hands and feet. You cannot whip the one who shines forth from the cherubim. He has to have a back. So, he does. He gets a whole body, bone of our bone, flesh of our flesh. Just as the children partake of flesh and blood, he partook of the same, so that through his death he might destroy him who has the power of death, that is the devil, and set the children who their whole life were subject to lifelong bondage to set us free. That is what he is doing. That is what must be done. There might be a few neighbors that you have where you're like, yeah, that's saving them is probably pretty serious business. It's you. It's me. Lost, condemned sinners, but God won't have it. He won't have you lost. He won't have you condemned. He won't even have you as a sinner. That's what the business of the incarnation and the cross is. And how glorious is this? Is that the Lord in his grace and his mercy and his kindness and love waits to show you how bad you are. He waits to the exact precise moment that he's showing you how good and how loving and how gracious he is. When he's on the cross and we see that's what we deserve, and he says, we with astonishment see that that's what we deserve. And he says, that's exactly what I'm taking for you. You're not getting what you deserve. You are getting the just and holy God, who is gracious and merciful, who is in your flesh to be in your sin so that you can be in his presence forever. Let me know what you think. Merry Christmas. Hey, also Happy New Year, and this is resolutions time, which I used to be against, but I'm now for, because I think it's good to reflect on and think about. So I'm going to make you guys a deal. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution if you make it with me, and it's this. I'm going to try to listen to Will Whedon's The Word of the Lord Endures Forever every day. I was talking to Jeff Schwartz over at Lutheran Public Radio, and he said, hey, Brian, give us a shout out on The Word of the Lord Endures Forever, which I said, that's okay. Of course I'll do that. But also, and they're doing great stuff at Lutheran Public Radio. It's really good. But I started thinking about, that's not just, it would be good for me too to listen to Pastor Whedon. He digs into the church fathers. He goes verse by verse through the scriptures. Jeff told me he just started a study on Colossians. They have all these back studies, but I think the habit is what I'm after. This habit of everyday listening to the Word of the Lord endures forever. So I'm going to put it in my podcast. I'm going to put it between the World News and Al Mohler. I'm going to do that and listen to that. So I would encourage you to do it with me. That'll be great. And let me know what you're learning and how that's going. That'll be great. Thanks. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. God be praised. Okay, here's the nerdy liturgy dating thing. I just made the connection to the date of Christmas and the date of the beheading of John the Baptist. Okay, so as far as I can tell, the reason why we have December 25th for the date of the birthday of Jesus is because of this ancient, old idea, not just in the church, but in the world, that important people died on the same day that they were conceived. And so we can sort out the death of Jesus, which they did, to March 25th. Now, I think that's probably pretty close, March 25th. And then Jesus died on March 25th, meaning that Jesus was conceived on March 25th. Conceived on March 25th, take that forward, and that's still the day that we celebrate the Annunciation, March 25th. Take that forward 9 months, and you get to December 25th, and that's the birthday of Jesus. Now, remember then that John the Baptist was conceived 6 months before Jesus was. But when the angel comes to Mary, says your cousin Elizabeth, who couldn't have children, has been pregnant for 6 months. So you take the March 25th and you go back 6 months, however you do it, you get to June 25th. Is that right? Well, let me do the math. Yeah, works out. April, May, June. You just go 4 3. April, May, June. So you have June 25th, June 24th. Let's fudge it a day. And that's when you get the beheading of John the Baptist. Because the idea is, again, that he would have died on the same day that he was conceived. So we know the date. So you know the date of the conception. And so then you therefore know the day of the death. So as far as I can, this is how all these dates came into play. We can calculate the day Jesus died, March 25th. We go forward, so then we say that's the day he was conceived. Have the Annunciation. You go forward 9 months to get the date of Christmas, and you go back 6 months to get the date of the conception of John the Baptist, and that then also gives you the date of the beheading of John the Baptist. Ha ha! And that we celebrate the birth of John the Baptist, that must be 9 months later, some other 25th. I bet you that's the case. I didn't even look it up, but I'm just... Anyway, I started the last videos with that. You didn't want me to start with that. It's here at the end. Thanks for hanging around to the whole end.